Welcome to Therapist Spotlight.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Angie's Therapist Spotlight, the podcast where we aim to showcase our wonderful members to the wider community. I'm your host, Joshua Brooks, and with us today we have a lovely therapist called Doreen Schwegler. Doreen, how are you tonight?
I'm very well, thank you, Joshua, and thanks very much for the opportunity.
It's our pleasure, and I believe you've got a fair bit of fertility speciality.
Yes, I've been a naturopath for over 32 years, but been specialising in fertility, particularly recurrent miscarriages, for probably the last 22 years. So I've got a lot of successful babies up my sleeve.
Fantastic. Well, this is going to be a great conversation, I can guess. So first question, what got you into natural health and natural medicine? What made you become a naturopath?
Yeah. Well, I guess my parents were always into looking at natural alternatives. So when I had a sore tummy when I was a child, my dad used to make me chamomile tea. My gran took me to the osteopath when I was young because I had a turned eye. And my mother took me to a naturopath probably when I was 8 or 10 for asthma and bronchitis.
Yeah, wow.
And I travelled, I studied, my initial studies was in haematology and medical laboratory science. And I worked in labs in Melbourne and then travelled overseas and worked in England. And as I was coming back through Asia, I got really interested in all the herbs and supplements and things that were in China and Hong Kong. And I wanted to learn more about it. And I actually had an infection in Beijing and went to this herbalist and coughed because I couldn't speak Chinese and he couldn't speak English, but he gave me something and it seemed to make things better. And I thought, wow, I want to find out more about this because I have a lifelong interest in learning about things. So I came back and studied at the Southern School and then 4 years later became a naturopath and worked part-time in hospitals and worked as a naturopath and then just got busier and busier and just wound down the laboratory work until I've just purely been a naturopath since my son was about 3. So that's 23 years ago.
Yeah, wow. So what made you do naturopathy and not Chinese medicine or Chinese herbal medicine or anything like that?
I didn't know that was an option. And I guess, probably if I had my time again, I'd probably study Chinese medicine as well. But I guess I was really happy with what the studies we did. And I did a lot of reading around what we learned. And because I had quite a few exemptions from recognition of prior learning, I still had to take 4 years because we still did nutrition over 4 years and herbal medicine over 4 years. But it gave me the time to do a lot more extra reading. And I actually did traditional Chinese medicine as an elective and a subject and study and stuff. So I'm a little bit familiar with the concept, but would be interested in learning more. But I feel you can't be a master of everything, and I'm happily refer to some really great Chinese acupuncturists and Chinese doctors when in conjunction with what I do, particularly with fertility. I think with recurrent miscarriage, it's really important to have both oars of the boat when you're treating a patient. So I think it's a brilliant adjunct to what I do.
Yeah, well, it's exactly like you said. It's a sort of that landscape for the client's health. We can't be good at everything. And so I think if we try to be good at everything, we just become substandard at everything. So it's much better if you refer on. Yeah,
you're just a jack of all trades. Exactly.
So why fertility? What grabbed you about fertility and what keeps grabbing you about fertility? And why have you decided to sort of make that your passion?
I guess my parents were quite old when I was born. So mum was 45 and dad was 60 and she had 5 miscarriages. I guess that may have had something to do with it. And I just was passionate. I did Francesca Nasha's course 3 times and just was really passionate with the excitement of helping people realize their dreams of a healthy baby, because I'm so passionate of getting basically the egg and the sperm right so that you create the most healthy human being possible. So, yes, we treat children, we treat adults, we treat old people, but if you can get that that embryo right from the very, very get-go, you're actually helping a whole generation of really healthy children. So it's a real passion.
Yeah, well, I remember looking at this stuff a long time ago, and what they were saying was, your baby starts 2 years before it's born, before it's even conceived, right?
And people don't understand that. And I actually offer a course called Creating Healthy Babies for Preconception. And I would love women, particularly because they're the ones that control their hormone, their fertility, and so I educate women to understand their charting, their fertile times, where they can swing around for contraception, or then when they're ready. But your monthly cycle is like your health report card. So if you've got regular cycles, it's pain-free, you're not having premenstrual symptoms, you're not getting pain, clotting, all sorts of things. That sort of excludes so many health conditions. So, so when they're ready, they can just swing around and get pregnant. But they're also looking at toxins, doing testing, making sure they're on the right supplement according to their genetic predispositions. And the male is part of 50% of the equation too. So when you're looking at miscarriage, you're actually the male is responsible for 50% of the miscarriages. So what they do, like anaesthetists' husband have, the wives that anaesthetists have a lot more risk of miscarriage because of the toxins that they're exposed to.
Wow.
And sometimes it can, ideally it can take up to a year to prepare, because you want to check for heavy metals and ensure that they're cleared out. I had one couple, she had been trying for 18 months. They went on to IVF, she conceived, but then miscarried. And when we did the testing, her husband's hair had lead levels off the Richter scale, like not even within the reference range of the upper end. And he was a lead lighter 10 years prior. So he was still carrying that lead in his body. Plus he was a gardener. So he was exposed to a lot of toxic chemicals. So once they detoxed, and she also was very highly anxious and zinc deficient, once we dealt with both of their general health, they conceived the most beautiful baby and at 42. So when you get those building blocks right, it makes such a big difference.
Yeah. And so then just with that, teaching people about the fertility access awareness method and all that sort of stuff, do you also use like Daisy and a lot of those temperature thermometers and sort of the apps so that they can track? Like, is that part of teaching women as well? Is that sort of in your ballpark?
So a lot of women prefer to have the apps where they can chart it, but they're not all accurate, and there's a lot of different options on there. Francesca Naish has a course with an app that is a lot more accurate, but I like the old-fashioned way, at least for the first 3 cycles, where they just plot it on a blank piece of paper with a little chart, and then we can educate when they're ovulating, if they're ovulating, whether the second half of the cycle is of an appropriate length and not too short, because that can be called a luteal phase defect relating to low progesterone, which can impact, which is seen in, say, endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome, and women with recurrent miscarriages. So that can be something that can be picked up. And sometimes the apps don't actually get the right time of ovulation. So there's a few things involved. So it can be, if it's a simple chart and you've got brilliant, clear temperature rise post-ovulation, and it's a perfect 14 days post-ovulation phase and all those great things, then the apps can be really simple, and the women can email that through to me so I get an idea and make sure the temperature stays up post-ovulation to ensure that's indicating good progesterone levels.
So then does that mean that you're teaching them how to look at like vaginal discharge and that sort of thing as to their cell? And so that's good that you know these things, but there's certainly the vaginal mucus changes and becomes more stretchy and fertile to facilitate the egg to get up, the sperm to get up to the egg. And if you're not getting that nice stretchy mucus, that can certainly impact your chances of conception. There's cheap things like different lubricants that can improve that, but often it's an indication of insufficient hormones or insufficient minerals like calcium or magnesium, or issues with the actual cervix, like sometimes there's been some damage or infections, or so it can be something that you can put topically, like some vitamin E capsules internally if there's low
issues. If there's been damage, like say abnormal pap smear, and they've had a laser excision and there's actually damage, so you can do different things to improve the mucus.
Yeah, wonderful.
And
Yeah,
herbs are brilliant too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I remember like listening to Dr. Jolene Brighton about a whole bunch of different, like how bad the pill was and all that kind of thing a long time ago.
Yeah, so Brighton is the one that says your periods are your monthly health report card. So I like that quote. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
she's Brighton.
Yeah, she's great.
Brilliant. Period manual.
Yeah. So a little bit of brass tacks now. If I was a woman and I came to you looking at like an initial consultation, what's involved? What sort of questions can you expect, and what would you like them to bring with them to make the consultation easier?
So the initial consult, they fill in a very thorough questionnaire prior to seeing me online, and it asks for their main issues and their past history, family history, medication that they're taking, natural supplements and how much they're taking, what brands, what their diet's like, what their stress is like, what their gut's like. So it's extremely their past history, any surgeries, any immune problems, any symptoms of thyroid dysfunction, what their periods are like. So it takes possibly a half an hour to complete that questionnaire. And then I take probably another 20, 25 minutes actually reviewing that before their consultation. I get them to bring in any pathology tests that they've done for the past 12 months or 18 months. Because I'm a medical scientist as well, I very much am a testing queen. So I look at the pathology and will actually get some extra tests done over and top of what they've done. And if it's a couple, I try and encourage the husband to come or partner to come as well, and he fills in a very thorough questionnaire. And then the initial consult, which is at the moment all on Zoom, or it can be face-to-face in Ascot Vale or North Melbourne or Sydney when I'm up there, but I haven't been up there for a little while. Then I do physical testing in the clinic as well, which is like the quad scan test for muscle and fat, and I look at their blood under the microscope. There's a test that I do in Melbourne called a FORT test, or an oxidative stress test, and it's a finger prick, takes about 15 minutes and measures their levels of oxidative stress, so whether they're under attack from, whether they're doing well with their antioxidants in their diet, or whether the attack is too high, which can be from vitamin D deficiency or insufficient sleep or stress or over-exercise or under-exercise or heavy metals or toxins. So I can get a very clear picture fairly quickly where I head. And then at the end of the consult, they get a very clear plan written up that's got their medications that they need to take, what we're working on, what their goals are, and then what their lifestyle things that they might need to do. Often start with a detox. So that's a really good sort of wiping the slate clean while we're getting all the information in. And then the recommendations of what we're planning to do next session, because it can be really overwhelming. And I've got a very clear in my mind where we want to go, but I can't hit them all at the initial consult because they get too overwhelmed and tend to not do anything. So I try and break it down into bite-sized chunks so that they can get acting and feeling empowered. And if they don't do everything I ask them to do on the first consult, that's absolutely fine. I just remind it and I leave it on their next script. So when we do a follow-up, I'll say, well, have you had those path tests done? Well, no, that's okay. We'll just get these done this time, or we'll do the mood stress questionnaire, or we'll do a detox questionnaire, or a pyrrole questionnaire, or whatever. And then we do testing along the side.
Yeah. And so then two questions, I guess. One, you would prefer it if the couples came and saw you, obviously, because you need sort of both, or like how does that work, and how would you prefer that for people if they're looking at coming to see you for this? Yeah.
So there's an advantage if they physically come in, but we can't do all of that on the initial visit. So I'm actually really happy doing the initial visit on Zoom. So we get we get to meet each other, we get to see each other, and then I actually do a testing appointment. So if they actually are, say, in another state or whatever, I can actually get that some of those tests done with other naturopaths that offer quad scan, or CR3000 for the FORT test, or live blood. There's a lovely lady in in Melbourne that does blood testing. She's a hematology scientist as well. So I can delegate some of those tests, and I can also do by default sometimes just they might go to a personal trainer and get an equivalent of their bioimpedance test, or they might have blood tests, and I can So I'm sort of happy with the first visit being Zoom. But some people just prefer to do face-to-face to start with, and I actually take a photo of their iris. I've just got a new iris camera that attaches to my phone, which is really handy, and I can just get that straight. I can email that to them straight away and give them some ideas about their predispositions. And sometimes it helps with their relationship, because if one's like a neurogenic, really tight nerve ring, and the other one's really big pupil and really calm, and they need lots of sleep, and the other one can get away with like 5 hours sleep. So I can sort of do a bit of marital relationship counselling just by their iris.
Yeah. And then with your sort of treatment plan then, so how many follow-up sessions are people typically going to look at, and how many do you like to give them? And what's that journey look like for them if they're committing to this?
Yes, a little bit depends on their time frame, their budget, and the age. So if it's a 42-year-old, I try and space the consults fairly quickly, like every 2 weeks, to really get through the program, because it's at least 4 sessions to get through all the information between testing and heavy metals and the pathology, and maybe hormone testing. So I'd like at least 4 sessions. But if they're pristine and know when they're fertile and done all their blood tests, it might only be 2 or 3 sessions. But if they've been through several miscarriages, it might be a year or even 18 months of treatment, and that would probably be monthly sessions initially, monthly. And then the other thing is, once they're pregnant, I actually look after them through the pregnancy, to particularly if they've had recurrent miscarriages, because I make up a tonic called my pregnancy support tonic to support the pregnancy up for the first trimester until the placenta takes over. And then I do different things through the trimesters. So at least 3 sessions through the pregnancy, and one, we call it the 4th trimester pregnancy, 4th trimester checkup, which is a post-birth checking that they're breastfeeding, they're not at risk of postnatal depression, that they're using settling techniques, they're not too stressed. So it's like a 4 sessions once they're pregnant session as well. Once each trimester, and once for the 4th trimester.
And so now then, after the consults, how does a treatment plan for you look like? Are you big onto herbs? Are you big onto nutraceuticals? Like, what's that look like so people can expect? And like, are you a big diet? And how does that all work now for this?
Look, a big chunk of what I do, because I would say maybe 70% of my clients that have fertility are overweight. So I do a lot of weight loss programs. I offer the Shake It, and I'm an ultralight franchisee, which is a very effective ketogenic program. So diet's a really big one. I mean, it depends on where they're at. If they're already on a pristine diet and they're eating organic veggies and meats, and they're using organic cleaning products and facial things, it's not so much of a big deal. And if they're normal weight, but if they're obese and trying to conceive, then I really focus on the diet to start off with, and use like basic preconception multivitamin, like a preconception prenatal and a fish oil. And then depending on their charts, that's when I bring in herbs. So if there's stress, if there's hormonal imbalance, if there's painful periods like endometriosis, I reduce the inflammation. So I might use P, which is a big long word that helps with pain. It works on the endocannabinoid receptors, a bit like cannabis. Or I'll use SPM, which is like the potent anti-inflammatories, or turmeric's one of my favorite herbs that I'll use either in capsules or in a liquid formula.
And so then
it depends on the patient whether I use herbs but I'll always do diet, and I'll always do nutrients, and then the herbs, I wait till I actually know what I'm working with, and then I'll use the herbs.
And so I guess, especially when you're looking at these heavy metal detoxes, there can be quite a few side effects. What would you tell people who are sort of wanting to engage with this? What can they expect when they have to, get rid of this sorts of things to have a healthy pregnancy?
Yeah, so I actually recommend they don't try for at least 3 cycles, because you don't want to have toxins coming into the egg and the sperm. So that's really hard when someone's like 40 and they've been trying, and I say don't try for 3 months. It's like a negotiation thing of probably 10 minutes of the consultation of why this is really important to go 1 step back, to go 2 or 3 steps forward. So yes, the detoxing I think is really, really vital, and that's probably accounts for probably I'd estimate maybe 30 or 40% of my clients' success, because we'd go back 1 step to go 2 steps forward and clear out the crap. Otherwise, it sort of goes into their breast milk, which, I'm sure breast milk still, even if it's got your toxins in there, is still going to be a lot better than formula. But if you can clear it out prior to conceiving, it's so much the better. And they feel better. I mean, the worst side effect of all the work that I do is they just feel happier, healthier, they sleep better, more energy, and fitter, and, reducing their risk of all-cause mortality and cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. And it puts them in long-term healthy eating habits. This is my goal anyway. That's the point. It's not just to get pregnant. It's to have a long-term healthy lifestyle and relationship with food and all that.
Yeah, wonderful. And so I guess the other thing that I've always been told is that you should have a space between babies. And I've always been told about 2 years is good for the mother to recover before coming in. So is that part of your consultation? Is that part of talking to them about child spacing? How does that work?
I think it takes a lot out of you, pregnancy and breastfeeding, and I don't see any rush to stop breastfeeding. Some women can breastfeed for 2 or 3 years and even have a pregnancy while they're breastfeeding, and it makes it easy when they don't have to wait for the milk to come in. They can just breastfeed both their toddler and their baby. But I think 2 years is a good, I don't know if it's a Chinese thing, but I always recommend 2 years is a good time, because it takes a while to build up those nutrients again and reestablish your cycles and just really build up the chi again, if you talk a bit like that.
Yeah, definitely. And so I'm guessing also you, with your lifestyle conversations that you talked to them, you talked about like postpartum exercise, prepartum exercise, what to do, how to, create that body, and when to get back into it and when not to get back into exercise, and how much exercise. Exactly. Is that part of your... Yeah. So like during pregnancy, I caution women not to get into yoga in the first trimester unless they're a yoga teacher and do yoga all the time. But generally, I do give guidance on exercise and postpartum. If it's like, if they've got a lot of damage to their tummy muscles through the pregnancy, I will refer them to a exercise physiologist or a physio that deals with that. Otherwise just general guidelines. Fantastic. Well, we're just coming up on time, so thank you so much for all of your information. This has just been amazing. Where can people find you? Where's your clinic located, and what have you got on offer? Because I hear you've got a few different courses and stuff for people, practitioners. So, lay it all out for us.
Lay it all out. So I'm in Ascot Vale in Melbourne and North Melbourne, and I'm online, and eventually we'll be in Sydney when we can open up. I go up there and do urine testing for chronic urinary tract infections. So the best thing is to look at my website, www.holistichealth.com.au, and that's holistic with H, O-L-I-S-T-I-C, holistichealth.com.au. And I've got heaps of great blogs on bone health and why can't I lose weight, and ketogenic microbiome support, and COVID vaccine preparation, and creating healthy babies. So I've written a book, so you can access the book on that. But I'm also in the process of doing a creating healthy babies proactive preconception course for couples wanting to conceive. And ideally it's targeted at couples that are thinking about babies in the next 6 to 12 months, not necessarily when they're actually having troubles, because then that's more personal one-on-one. But the information, the initial module, there's 8 modules. So the initial one is understanding charting, like temperatures and mucus, and when they're fertile, and what things that can go wrong. The second module's on detoxing your environment, plastics, chemicals, heavy metals, and specific detox programs. The third one's on testing, different tests that the over and above what the doctor tests for. Then there's stress and relationship module. There's one on male fertility, and then there's modules on problems like endometriosis, polycystic, and Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is a thing. So that's all on the website, or you can reach out and email me, Doreen at holistichealth.com.au, and I'll forward you the information for those courses and the book that I wrote, which is called what's the book that I wrote? It's called Complete Health Overhaul, your guide towards better health, happiness, and better sex.
Oh, wow. I think everyone would like to say that last one.
Yes, exactly. I had to do that to make it sell.
That's right. We all know the adage in marketing. That's right.
Yes, exactly.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And as always, guys, the links will be in the description below. So if you're looking at any sort of natural health, natural fertility, please check out Doreen's website and look her up. But yeah, we'd just like to thank you so much for coming on Therapist Spotlight.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Josh. Thanks for having me. And pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. And for everybody else out there, have a great night, and we'll see you all later. Hey, bye.
Thank you for listening to Therapist Spotlight. If you would like to know more about ANTA, visit us at www.anta.com.au.